How are you, Hattie?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I mean, obviously it's long time no speak, but I've got here with me live from Chicago. What time is it over there, Maria?
It is 9 p.m. here, so it's a little late, but
Yeah, she's soldiering on after a
Oh,
big day of
wow.
PT. Maria's our host. Yeah, Maria and I host the show together, and she's obviously a WBFF pro as well. So Maria, meet Hattie. Hattie, meet Maria.
it
Hi,
is.
Maria.
I'm
Nice to
super
meet
excited to
you.
be on this podcast with you. Yeah, I was telling Dane, I've been following you since I started my fitness journey, and I'm super excited that you're actually our first female guest on the podcast. And there's no better female that I would love to have on our show, especially when our topic is about empowering women in the fitness industry.
Oh my God,
It is such a pleasure to have you.
I'm honored. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I mean, I've known Dane for oh my God, I've known Dane since I was 17.
Oh my
Yeah,
Which is
God.
so
I
funny.
was thinking about that. I was thinking about that during the week too. It's like, when did Hattie and I kind of, connect initially? And it would have been back there in the St. Leonard's days. But you know what?
It
We'll
was.
get to that, no doubt.
Yeah.
I'll hand it over to you, Maria, and let
Yeah.
you kick off.
Let's dive right into our podcast. So, like I said, we're going to be chatting about the empowerment of women in the fitness industry, and there's no better guest than you to talk about that. But for viewers who may not be super familiar with you, which I'd be surprised if they're not, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you started in the fitness industry?
Yeah, I guess I started really young, actually. I actually did my PT certificate when I was 17. And I started working as a PT literally, I think it was like 3 days after I turned 18. I'm 32 now, so it's been 15 years. But I've always been interested in sports and competing. So I was an elite gymnast growing up. Um, I always laugh because
Mm.
I've done more training in my life than anything else that I've ever done. Like I have been this body has done a lot for me, and I haven't always been kind to it. I haven't always been self-empowered and exercise self-leadership and all of those things. um, so it's been quite a journey to get to where I am today, but as I reflect on my journey, which I do very often, there's no way I would be the person that I am without the whole journey that I've been on. And I guess we're going to touch on that a little bit later. But
Yeah.
yeah, I got started in the fitness industry super young. There was no social media there. I was really lucky that when I first started training, I had amazing mentors around me, which I have to
Mm.
say, anyone starting in the industry, it's a
Yep.
it's a big pond with lots
Yeah.
of fish, but there's so many fish to feed, and
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that I was put into the right hands really early and had really great mentors around me that saw potential, thank God, and said, let me help you. And so, yeah, it's
I
just
think
been an ongoing journey.
that era in Sydney, like around St. Leonard's, the city and stuff like that, back in the late noughties,
Mm.
St. Leonard's. Did you do your actually interesting one? Did you do your Cert 3, Cert 4 at the AAF, just St. Leonard's campus?
Yeah, yeah. Nadia Norman
Yeah,
was
yeah. I was going to say
my
it would have been Nards back then,
yeah,
eh?
yeah. And she, do you know, it was
Yeah,
funny because she actually led me into fitness modeling. I saw her do her first physique show,
right.
and I remember looking at her going, "Whoa!" Like going to this show, and she's like, "You should try it." And so I was like, "Okay." It was, I got to train for something. There was competing. I was fiercely competitive. I was 20 at that time, so there was like maybe only 6 or 7 girls on stage at that time. Zoe Daly was conquering at that. I remember seeing a photo of her going, "I can do that."
She was. Well,
So
she was that generation's Lauren Simpson, right? Before
mm,
Instagram.
mm, yeah, it was Facebook, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
I was going to
Yeah,
say
Facebook.
that's how I felt when I saw you first compete. It kind of inspired me to step the stage on the WBFF stage. Just I've watched you from I think it was 2016 or 2015. I saw you on stage and I was like, "Oh my goodness." Hands down been my inspo for everything. So just how you had that inspo and someone to look up to, that's kind of where I stand, at the beginning of my fitness journey as a coach, as a competitor and everything like that.
I think it's so important. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's anyone can be inspired, but it's what we choose to do with it. And I always say, inspiration without action is just entertainment. So I'm grateful for the people
Yep.
around me that inspired me to take action and not just
Yeah.
entertain an idea. And, you know, I definitely look back and think, God, I wish I did things better in the beginning, you know, with competing. But again, that was just my journey, you know, and I learnt, and I always say I learned the hard way. So that was it. But, you know, it's such a huge
I think.
market now.
Well, it is. I mean, I think one thing I've seen from obviously knowing you for 15 odd years, you know, I still remember you as that young, kind of a lot skinnier, you know, you're a young girl back then, right? Like, you know, 17, 18 years old at St. Leonard's Fitness First. And I think, like, if you look at that era back then and a lot of the, you know, trainers that were around that environment around St. Leonard's, North Sydney, in the city, there are a lot of, I guess, strong personalities, but a lot of people that really value their education and we're pushing to become something more than just your average PT in a gym. And I think from afar, seeing you kind of being that you know, young girl, like doing the classes and all that type of stuff, doing your certs, and then kind of, you know, a few years later, I remember you at George Street Platinum.
Yeah.
Fitness First, knocking out, you know, 40, 50 sessions a week.
Yeah.
You know, I think one of the things that a lot of people forget is that they see your success now and they forget that you spent a long time in the trenches, you know, in the trenches, training people, not online, not with the sports model project, not all that. You were training people in the gym. Like, what would be your advice, and kind of, I guess, talk to us a little bit about like that journey of transitioning from attending classes to looking up to trainers to becoming one yourself, going into the city and killing it there. I remember you were at George Street, I was at Bond Street. You know, tell us a little bit about kind of that journey.
Yeah, I mean, just like most people, I started out doing exercise classes and doing numerous back-to-back classes and not eating and, you know, chasing the burn and the sweat and I did all those things. I've probably done every bad habit under the sun for extended periods of time. And
that's how you learn.
That's how we learn, you know, and I remember doing your classes, and I remember, no, I do remember thinking there's got to be another way.
Do I still look the same?
You've done pretty well, actually. You're not as big. You were like this. You were freaking big. He was big.
No,
you were like, you were into the bodybuilding and like you had huge quads. I remember seeing you training at St. Leonard's and I mean, you know, we all mature. It's funny because I used to be like 50 kilos. Now I have 50 kilos of muscle. Like, I'm never going to be 50 kilos again. Thank God. But I guess, that transition, like anyone else, it's like just getting started, not knowing what to do, being intimidated when I walked into a gym. You know, lucky when I started doing my PT course, I started to learn about weights and got really fell in love with weights because it was just a different kind of feeling to what cardio would give me. And obviously becoming more educated and doing competitions where I started to follow a program for the first time. And, you know, and then many years later, you know, working with Tony Battaji and Sebastian, and, you know, I say it all the time, you know, strength training changed my life. Like, there's weight training. Yes, that was a change. That was like, oh, it doesn't have to be this cardio, but it was strength training that literally just changed my overall being to a life-changing moment where it was really not about the way I looked. Like, I was doing this sport that is all about the way I looked, to going, well, actually, how do I perform? Like, how do I just be that little bit better, you know, week by week, month by month, year by year? And it really changed the way I saw my body, where it became this incredible appreciation of this tiny little body moving these crazy amounts of weight, and just seeing it change and transform, and also trusting this process that I'd never followed before. And I remember like my first session with Bass, where he told me to sit down for 4 minutes, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I was anxious.
I'm not here to sit down.
I was like, no, I do 60 seconds, mate. Like, no, I'm good. And it was like I remember him, he runs with my face like all the time. Like, it was just like, I looked at him with daggers going, I'm never coming back again. But I did. I came back. And I remember saying to him, I'm only going to squat once a week because I don't want big legs. Because I remember at that time, I was running because my boyfriend told me that I had thunder thighs, and I was like, oh shit, can't have thunder thighs. So I'd only train my upper body, and I was still in this limbo of, I was still very much in a limbo of, what the hell am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I was finding my feet with my image. I was still recovering from, I guess, disordered eating behaviors and patterns and body dysmorphia, and I just was new to competing, so I was learning the post competition blues side of thing, and there's just nowhere near the amount of support that we have now that what we used to have back.
I was going to say
You know,
the
like
industry back then for women like
oh
competing and stuff like that. You know, like I remember you spoke about Zoe. I remember her coming to me because I was coaching her back then, and you know the calorie deprivation, the overtraining, the lack of support was a common theme with fitness models back then, and you know, we didn't have the social media platforms of women that had done it before, really. I mean, you had Lindy Olson and people like
yeah.
that back then a little bit. There's some names, aren't they? But like, you know, today, I think, you know, women are afforded a much larger opportunity of having role models that they can go to for advice to really help them with their career and within themselves.
Yeah, and like going off of that, Hattie, you've been very open and brave about your, your history and struggles with depression, eating disorders, and bullying, and sometimes that's really hard for women to talk about. And I think, you having the voice that you have and being open about that, how did you manage to see that shift in your mindset? And can you give us a little bit about, how that mindset transformed today, since you have been doing this for so many years, and, people usually look and see the end result, but don't know how much time and work has gone into that. But you have experienced an extreme that, a lot of women still struggle with today.
Yeah, I mean, I always laugh because it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. And I remember the first moment of being like, wow, I'm really starting to feel success, but it had taken so long. And I guess, people always ask me, what was the shift? What was the shift in mindset? And there was a couple, it layered. I remember being in hospital and looking around going, this is not living. Someone telling me when I've got to eat, what I've got to eat, what I got to do, when I go to bed, can't see my family. I was like, okay, what have I done? And how do I get out?
Yeah.
And so that was like and also like, it was like, okay, there's so many women suffering. I'm strong enough to suffer, but these girls aren't, because they'd been in and out of hospital for 7 years. And I was like, okay, what do I have to do to help these women? And I was like, well, I've got to be the change I wish to see. I remember thinking it so vividly, going, all right, okay, shit, how do I get out of here? How do I do this thing? How do I help people? That was like the first layer. Of course, there was so many rocky roads leading to the next layer. And the next layer was, I wanted to lead by example. I wanted to lead by what I was saying and what I was doing, not just by what I was saying. And it was like, okay, looking into the mirror moment, going, do as you say and be a true leader. And I was really lucky that at that time, my boyfriend at the time, he was super supportive, incredibly caring, and he really worked with me on that. And my family, amazing supporters. I was really lucky to have a really beautiful network around me, and they really did help nurture, I guess, my rehabilitation to getting healthy. But it's, anorexia is, while it's very much, we focus on the physical, it's the mental, and the mental drags along for a period of time. And it really wasn't, until I was like, you know what, I have an opportunity to really help people, but I have to be the leader myself. I didn't want to be, what's it called? A lot of people have it.
Imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome. I was like, no, I'm not going to be an imposter. I'm going to be who I say I am.
Yeah.
Getting into the strength training, like I said, I was like, I feel so empowered. Like, oh my God, this is another level. Learning to do, flexible dieting and going, okay, it doesn't have to be this way. How do I look at food as neutral, right? Being like, okay, if I want to do this thing, if I want to be an athlete, because that's what I said I wanted to be, how would an athlete treat themselves? And it really was working on my mindset and going, who do I have to become? What qualities, what personality traits, what characteristics do I have to embody right at this moment to become the person I want to be? Like, I can't be a fraud and be that person over here. I have to be that thing. I have to be that person right now in this very moment, whether I believe it or not, because eventually I'm going to believe it.
When was that for you? Like around what year?
Oh, that was very much around 2014. 2014 was
Okay.
really,
So you'd been in the industry a few years and kind of
yeah.
figured out what you did like and what you didn't like and all that.
Yeah, and it was still, there was still these highs and lows, and I was still wrestling with body image issues. I just started competing, and there was no support between shows. So I was, and like my parents are going, "Oh my God, you're doing this thing where you're restrictive eating and you're exercising. Like, Hattie, are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Mom, I've got it all under control." And I did, but I didn't. Like, I was not terrible, but it was sticky, at times. And I was like, okay, I remember going, if I'm gonna do this, I'm going to learn how to do this the best way. And actually that was 2013, but 2014 was when I really started strength training. So that was like a really big layer got taken off. And then I just recognized, as I said, anorexia it's mental. And I just realized I nearly killed myself. I literally nearly killed myself.
Yeah.
If I put all of that focus into something really good and positive and powerful, man, who can I be? And that was where I was like, all right, now I've got to put all that effort in, that same amount of effort into being the best version of me. Because before I even had anorexia, my thought process was, how do I get the most out of me? And it became a controlling thing, but it became a controlling thing that became out of control. So I still went, okay, well, how do I be the best me? But I was able to kind of funnel it in a different way where it was, how do I be the best me? I grew up a little bit. I got educated. I was around really great people. I saw what was on the other side of recovery. I think that was the biggest thing. Life happens when we're recovered. It doesn't happen when we're beating ourselves up, when we're bullying. And I recognized that the most important relationship that I had, and we hear it all the time, it's with ourselves. I say it over and over and over again to my clients. I'm like, you are so important. I know your kids are important, absolutely, but who's their world? You are.
Look, you've got. I'm a father of 6, right? So like,
what?
For me,
boy, you've been busy. Damn.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I've
Definitely throws that in.
had three from 2 marriages and inherited 3 from my second marriage.
Okay.
I've been busy, but not that busy. But yeah, look, I definitely don't shoot blanks. That's for sure. But but one thing I will say is like, you using that ideology, like for me, self-care is paramount. If I am not getting my training session in, if I'm not getting in my solo time, I can't be the best version that I can be. I can't be the best leader for my team. I can't be the best father to my kids. I can't be the best husband to my wife. And, if I'm foregoing all that and being completely selfless for everyone else without being a little bit selfish for me, I can't be the best version of me that I can be. I think that rings really true.
Like the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, and that's usually when you feel like, if you're not, and I think with health and wellness, I chatted about this today too. With your health and wellness, it's a non-negotiable. Like, you need to prioritize your own health and wellness so you can show up for all the other areas of your life. Unfortunately, if you're not healthy mentally and physically, there's no way for you to be present, as the mom, in your job, in whatever role you play in your life outside of that. Like, you need to take care of yourself in order to nurture and care for everything else that you care for in your life.
And just something Dane said, like, you're so right, Maria, but like something Dane said before was like, if I don't have that little bit of selfishness in the day, it's like, what is selfish about giving yourself maybe an hour out of it? It's
don't feel
selfless.
guilty about that.
It's self-care. It's self-love.
Yeah.
Like,
and
we are so many things for so many people. From the moment we wake up, as parents, you are a dad straight away. Like, that's why it is so important that you are set, you do things for you, because you are that anchor, you are that world for so many other people. Like, and when you're angry and you respond to things, you go, "Oh, I wish I didn't respond that way." It's because there's something that wasn't aligned. And so I really feel like there's a difference between being selfish and selfless and self-care. Like, there's a really big difference there. And I think something I always say is, like, I keep my blinds closed and the blinds closed, and I do my like morning ritual, and I'm like, okay, once I'm done, I open up the blinds. I'm like, I'm ready for the world now, because I'm ready. If I don't, if I haven't done my training, like, give myself spots in the day for my training or meditation work or any kind of that, it's like, how can I be there for someone? Because I wasn't there for myself.
Well, I think a key part with that, which I think Maria will come into, but just to jump in, women in particular struggle to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's almost been programmed and ingrained from a society standpoint that a woman has to be, the mum, the wife, in many cases the breadwinner too, and all these things put together. It's a lot harder for women to have that mindset, I think, inherently, although it is getting better, but inherently I've found it has been.
Yeah, and that goes into like, Hattie, what do you think is like one things that like you wish that every woman knew when it came to health, fitness, and nutrition, mindset wise, right? We talk about this all the time. You can be healthy physically, but if your mind isn't healthy, are you really healthy? What is one thing you wish that every woman can take in mindset wise? That's a hard question, but
It's a hard question. I guess it goes back to my biggest thing is relationship with self. And I did a post the other day about this, and I talk about intimacy and intimacy, and we can't expect to be intimate with others if we're not intimate with ourselves. And that means we have to look inwards. We have to do some work on ourselves. I think the act to compare is definitely the thief of joy. And it can be so hard with social media that now we're exposed to so thousands of other people every single day. The amount of information that we take in on a daily basis is crazy. Like I said, when I first started, there was no Instagram. I didn't know what someone across the world was doing. Like, I couldn't compare myself to that person. Whereas now it's like, that's all you see. You see the people with the big names and all the bodies. And it's like, I don't look like that, so I'm less than. And that's not true at all. Like you said, someone could be healthy. We see plenty of healthy bodies on the industry, in the industry, but also on social media. But how are they actually mentally? And at the end of the day, we don't live out here. We live in here. The words that we say to ourselves over and over again, there are words that only you hear, that no one else hears. And this is important. So language, I say to my girls, language is so important. It is a weapon of love or destruction. How are you going to use it? It's a weapon of love or destruction. How are you going to use it? At the end of the day, no one hears what you do. And our language has power. It has power. And so looking at our language,
definitely,
relationship with self, I always bring this thing back. It's like, would you say that to yourself in front of your daughter? Would you say that to yourself in front of your daughter? And what if you heard your daughter say that?
I say that to my mom clients. It's how do you talk to yourself in front of your kids? And I have some women clients with daughters who are like high school, middle school age, and I tell them you cannot talk negative about yourself in front of your daughter. You can't do that because she's going to develop those very same complexes that you did hearing your mom talk that way. And it's like setting the standard and example for someone in your life. And I think it also will teach you to talk better about yourself as well. I'm a big, I talk about that all the time, that mindset over everything. It's not just about your training. It's about how you feel about yourself, whether you're 50 kilos or 30 kilos or whatever you weigh, whatever you look. If you're not happy with yourself now, you will not find happiness with a different number on the scale or a different size. It's really what happens within and in your head.
It's really, this is such a big topic because, I always say that unconditional love has uncomfortable spaces.
Yeah.
And we all go through uncomfortable spaces from time to time. And it's not just nurturing ourselves and continue doing these practices when we feel good. It's can we continue to practice and pull ourselves up on our language when things are not going so well. At the end of the day, radical responsibility and radical self-leadership are like two of the most powerful tools that we can use to change our lives. Radical self-leadership, radical responsibility, because we are wholly responsible for how we think, act, the words we choose, the thoughts we choose to keep. And I think when people really start to
100%.
recognize that they're responsible, they can make a change. But it's hard.
Well, you spoke about it earlier, Hattie, about you got to that point in about 2014 where, you realized you needed to make a change and you really started kind of visualizing, feeling into where you wanted to go, where you wanted to be. And obviously you've been able to get to that place. Like, tell us about that process. Like how has that been for you in terms of like, is that something that you coach with a lot of your clients that you're working with, just that whole visualization, manifestation, and really kind of feeling into, because I always say to people, you've got your current state and your future state.
Yeah.
And for me in life, you talk about responsibility, anything and everything that I've done in life to date, I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
The good, the bad, the everything in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think you spoke before about kind of, how people are kind of comparing themselves on social and stuff, a lot of those things. A lot of it comes back to self-judgment. And I think that a lot of the time actually inhibits people from kind of taking themselves outside of their comfort zone where they currently are. They might be physically and mentally not healthy. They might have financial issues. They might have relationship issues. And they're unable to really kind of trigger that change to go from point A to point B. Like, go a little bit more in depth about that process for you. What does that look like in terms of just a day to day? I saw the other day you put up a video of like it was a
touch meditation,
a physical body meditation. Yeah, touch meditation.
Yeah,
that got taken
like
down.
That's my jam.
I meditate every day. I meditate every day. I have for many years, and I've never done a touch meditation. I've done lots of things whilst meditating, but I've never done a touch meditation.
Yeah.
Talk us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so, I mean, I love visualization. Visualization got me to the World Championships. And like we mentioned before, it's like, if you can't see who you want to be, how do you know the path to take? If you can't envision who you want to be, you can't believe that. You can't believe in it. And self-belief, again, should be the backbone of the trust and the process to yourself. And I love visualization. I love journaling. Journaling I often use as a like a mantra. So affirmations, I will do this, I can do this. What does my process look like? What do I need to mark off? I will accomplish this, this, and this. And I use it rather than like dear diary. It's like, I'm telling myself what I'm going to do today. Like, this is what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And then reflect on it. Hey, did I do the thing I said I would do? Self-leadership.
One of the most powerful things I've done is, not just visualizing, but actually writing out as though it were a novel, what my life's going to look like.
Daily, perfect day.
It's but even going further than that, like, a perfect day to the standpoint, like, after I eat my lunch, I want to go and sit on a chair by the lake and just watch the birds.
Yeah.
It could be something that
detail.
mundane.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, feeling, and writing into it, and it's surprising. Like, I've done this exercise multiple times over the years, and you look back at what you've done, you're like, fuck, that actually happened.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've done a lot of the same stuff yourself.
Yeah.
I have a dry erase board in my room, and every few weeks I go back to it and I write down like what I want to accomplish in that month. And then also, like, for instance, with my competing, almost 2.5 years before I even became a pro, I wrote Maria Barova WBFF Bikini Pro. I wrote it. I believed it every day. I was like, it's going to happen. I'm not stopping until I can write that little check. Or like something as, little as I want to be happier with myself. Like, it goes as big and as little as that, but once it's written and I see the words, it's like they're ingrained in my brain. It's not just how we said earlier, you say it, but don't do anything about it. It's when I see it every day, I say it every day, I start acting like it every day, you become that. Whatever you are envisioning, I'm a whole believer in like manifestation. You are what you believe in, and you start acting like that, and it starts to come to life.
It's like words mean nothing without action.
Yes.
A dream without a process is just a dream, or a goal without a process is just a dream. And something that I learned over the years, and I'm grateful for gymnastics, was it was very process driven, right? It was layer after layer after layer. It was skill set after skill set after skill set. It was discipline. It was focus. It was failing a lot. It was fucking scary, and it was competitive, and it was also teamwork. It was individuality, teamwork. And it really did set me up to be able to go, I need to work for this thing. And I can work for this thing on my own, but I can work for this thing with other people around me on the same mission. And that's kind of how I started the Sports Bottle Project. And within that, I teach my girls, be process driven, visualization, affirmations. What can I control? What is the lowest hanging fruit? when do I push? When do I pull back? When is 80% better than, 100%? Or when do we go 100% instead of 80%? It's like learning to have all these different tools and different times to apply the tools, because we can't always be 100%, right? It's not about being perfect. It's about progress. And I love saying failing forward, because, masters don't become masters without the practice. And if within that practice is always failure, because we learn. Like, we can't learn by just...
Well, I have a saying on that. Failing to fail is failing.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Failing to fail is failing. I like
Failing
that
to fail
Yes.
is failing.
Okay. I was like, hold on. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Because, at the end of the day, if you don't take yourself outside of your comfort zone to where you get to that failure point, you're actually failing yourself, because that's how human beings evolve. It's through building resilience, whether it's physical with training, emotional with life experience, or whatever that might be. So for me, my biggest learning curves in life have been when I've been, down for the count, whether physically, whether financially, whether spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is. It's when I've been at rock bottom and have been ready to either throw in the towel or just give up on things.
I love failing. I love it so much, because that just means there's so much more room for growth.
Yeah.
If you always won, is there really growth available to you? And this for all aspects of life. I think that fear of failure causes a lot of anxiety and negative emotion. For me, I think with practice, obviously, because I didn't just wake up and was able to do this. With practice, I accept failure. I know that it could happen and it could be out of my control, but it motivates me to find why. Why did I fail? Is there room for growth or something that I can control and do so I do not fail the next time? And I've been competitive my whole life, competing in sports, cheerleading, with bodybuilding. It's just something that fuels my fire. Even with business in life, failing means you're doing it right. It's something that no one should be afraid of.
Yeah, totally. And it just means, you're growing. Like, it's when we stop that we fail, actually. And I just want to circle something back, because Dane, you asked me about, actually both of you asked me about what advice would I give to women, to improve mindset. And Dane, you asked me about my morning rituals, and we started to go talk about intimacy, and the morning ritual of the touch. And why I want to circle back to that is because I actually think it would be a really cool practice to any of the women who are on here and are struggling with their body and feeling a sense of disconnection, because I started that practice when I was incredibly disconnected from myself. I didn't start that practice when I was in love with myself and everything was great. It was the complete opposite. I was in a really terrible place in my life. I just ended in a 9-year relationship that ended terribly, and I felt like a black hole, and I didn't know who I was for a period of time. And the reason I started to touch was because I needed to feel myself again, and I needed to feel and thank my body for all of the stages that it's been through, for the stages that it's going through, and the stages that it's going to go through. And it really did make a huge impact on becoming intimate with myself, which I think a lot of people have a really big disconnection from, and think that if I just change the external all the time, suddenly I'm going to be sexy, and suddenly I'm going to love myself, and suddenly I'm going to be confident. But the truth is, you can be all of those things without having to look a certain way, because sexiness and confidence is inner work. Everything else is a complement. And so the touch meditation, which started with breath work and as a meditation, became something that in the beginning it felt like it was someone else because I was so disconnected. But then over time it felt like me, and it was like, oh my God, this feels so good. And then it led to other things of self-love. And I really feel like, for anyone that's really struggling with themselves, one of the best things that you can do is actually start to touch yourself. Sit in a room on your own, put music on that feels good for your soul. Breathe with your flow, touch your body, thank it, right? Because we can't expect things to grow from hate, but we can expect things to grow from love. Just like we nurture a plant, it grows. We nurture our children, they grow.
Yep.
We nurture food in the garden, it grows. We're the same. We are exactly the same thing, right? And so,
I think a lot of time as human beings we forget to be grateful about the body that we live in.
Yeah, and I think
we only get one.
We only have one, and I think people are so there's so much importance on finding the right person or someone else to fill the holes that we can't fill, that we actually, the truth is we need to fill them ourselves. And then people around us are a complement. And if we're wondering why the people around us aren't good for us, well, we need to look at how we are treating ourselves, and the environment that we're in. And sometimes we actually have to completely change our environment to change our state, to change our habits.
And you talk about how you incorporate this as part of your routine every morning. But what does like a Hattie Boydle day look like? How do you incorporate all of these layers that really nurture your, health and wellness and self-love, your training, your nutrition? What does a day in the life of your life look like?
Well, at the moment, I seem to be waking up at 4:45 in the morning. I wake up at 4:45 and I put some music on and I start with my touch meditation, and it goes anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how much time I have in the morning. I masturbate after that. And then I actually have gut performance, have water. I go down to sunrise. I watch sunrise every morning, go for a morning walk, come back, have breakfast.
What part of Sydney are you in?
I'm actually in the Gold Coast at the moment.
Oh, okay. Lucky you.
Yeah, so I actually came up here beginning of June, and then they declared lockdown, so I just never left.
Oh my gosh.
Can't blame you.
So yeah, I've just been staying in my own place, and I get up and watch sunrise every morning. So I've been just waking up super early, just naturally. And then I tend to train mid-morning. Sometimes I'll have calls, then I'll train, then I've got calls again generally. Depends, it's just like work's laced throughout the day, but I always like to train like mid-morning. That's my jam before I have like a heavy day of work. Otherwise I feel like once I've started work, I
think that's
switch
the
it off.
That's the fitness first ritual.
Yes.
Morning clients, the mid-morning training. You'd have your early morning clients. You'd have your meal after that. You'd do some admin work, then train mid-morning. It's like I'm the same. For me, it's mid-morning. Like I'm up early too, and sometimes I train early. Just for the sake of it, like maybe some cardio or something. But that mid-morning training session, it's like the sweet spot.
Since I've been here, I've been swimming, going for a swim, and my God, it is just so good for the soul. Even when it's cold, like actually when it's cold, it's like, let's do it. So I just sometimes I've got calls in the morning, sometimes I've got calls in the afternoon. Generally, I always try and get out the sun. Just try and like my days are they're like structured, but they're random in a way.
Yeah.
What time are you normally like hitting the sack?
Oh my God. At the moment, I'm like dying by 8:30, but I tend to go to bed around 9:30, 8:30, 9:30. I'm just like, especially because I've been waking up so early. And I had a nap yesterday afternoon for an hour at 5:30. I was just zonked, and then I couldn't get to sleep last night, so I ruined it a little bit. But.
Yeah, I'm up at 4 a.m. and in bed by 8, 9, and people are messaging me, and I'm like, you're getting an answer at 4 a.m. in the morning. This girl is
exactly
prioritizing her sleep. We're going to shift over into training. Mm-hmm. You are actually coached by our partner, Sebastian Oreb, who is the strength coach. And we want to know a little bit more about your programming. Now, everyone who knows you knows you're pretty freaking strong. And it's very admirable that you were able to go from one end to the other end, especially when it comes to strength. Yeah. What does your training look like right now? Because I know you have, you do a lot of the power lifting and you're really strong, but you also have, your bodybuilding. You are a WBFF World Champion, and that's a lot about your aesthetics. How do they go hand in hand? Can you chat a little bit more about that with us?
Yeah, so Sebastian and I, we've been working together since 2014, like I mentioned before, and my training with him has changed a lot over time. Oh God, it's changed a lot, and I guess you'd call it power building now. Bass
and combo of the two, yeah.
Bass and I, it's now very much a collective process where I say this and this needs to be done. I'd like to reach this kind of goal. what's the most effective way of doing that? And as I've gotten older, I just cannot train the way I used to train. Like the year I won the Worlds, which was 2016, I was squatting 6 days a week. 6 days a
Whoa.
week. And I could do it. I got it. I did it. And aesthetically, I was pleasing. I won the World Championships. You know, I barely did any upper body at that time. I just had, my shoulders were built off a little bit of external rotation work, a tiny bit of pressing, and just holding the bar, really. Like just holding the bar on my back, front squatting. I barely deadlifted. It was really quite interesting. And there's no way I could do that now. Not with the recovery that I could do back then, but also, you know, the physique that I need to have now is completely different to what it was back then. And I've got so much more muscle maturity. So at the moment, what my training looks like is I always prioritize a strength block. Sometimes I'll have a strength day, and then I'll have, you know, higher rep, that bodybuilding style days between my strength days. And I'll just go in, do my strength work and get out essentially. At the moment, I'm starting with an A series of low bar squat and deadlifts. Actually not deadlifts, so I'm not deadlifting at the moment. Low bar squats and high bar squats. And then the rest is all accessory work, which will be squats, split squats, glute work. I've got a glute isolated day. Actually, at the moment, I've got a posterior day, which will be upper and lower together. It just changes a lot over time, depending on where I'm at in terms of how far I am out of a show. If I'm in a building phase, essentially what I really want to work on.
Have you got any plans to compete?
Well, I was going to do the October show in the Gold Coast, but that got cancelled. So I will, you know, I'll see how I'm
Hattie
looking for
Boydle,
next
World
year.
Champion 2022. Let's go.
That's the goal, 2022 for sure. What category I go in will you know, the way I like to train and the way they want me to look are two different things. So, you know, I always get told my quads are too big, and I look at Steph Ayala, who's an incredible athlete, and I loved competing with her. You know, her quads are so much tinier than mine. And for me, competing, yes, I love competing, but far out, I love training. It's having last year off because there was no shows on. I just loved training to no pressure, and I could do whatever the fuck I wanted. Like, sorry, I swore. Like I could deadlift as much as I wanted. I could snatch grip deadlift. I could do whatever I wanted. You know.
I think with that point though, like the goalposts change so often with competing year in year out in regards to what they're actually looking for from the categories. It, you know, I think it makes it hard, especially when you've been doing it as long as you have, to stay motivated, right? Because I think after 10, 15 years of training the way that you have, like you mentioned before, squatting 6 days a week, you don't need to do that anymore because you've developed a level of muscle maturity that you can maintain that and evolve that with far, far less. It's like that law of diminishing returns, right?
Yeah.
The stronger you get, the more neurologically efficient you get, the less you actually need to do it. But, you know, again, you know, you at 32 compared to 25, 26, like you've got a much bigger business now and all of these things that come in with it. Talk to me about, like, you know, when you spoke before about your day in the life of Hattie, it sounds like in many respects, actually sounds quite similar to mine, actually, in terms of cold ocean swims and meditating and kind of doing whatever. But talk to us about, like, you seem to have kind of built up like the dream existence for a lot of young women that are in the fitness industry as PTs or fitness professionals, because obviously a large segment of our audience are PTs. Like, how has that occurred? You know, like, how have you been able to kind of do that? And talk to us a little bit about kind of what your business actually is right now for people that don't know about the Sports Model Project, who it's catering to, and kind of, you know, what the end outcome and the mission is of that.
Yeah, so the Sports Model Project.
This is where you can basically promote your business.
Oh, gosh. Well, here we go. No. The Sports Model Project, I mean, it started with just me in 2013. Funny enough, it started with me and 12 of my girlfriends who weren't even, like, didn't even train. We were training out the park. I used to bring this little wheelie bag out to the park and train the girls out there. And it started with 12 girls in a park, 12 girls online, and then transitioned over into, I brought it into my boyfriend's gym at the time. He was running some sessions out of the PCYC, and he said, let's bring the Sports Water Project in here and let's work together on a business. So we actually became business partners. And we went from having, like I said, 12 girls to 120 girls training at the PCYC, 4 or 5 sessions a day, just like ripping into it. And I modeled it off what I'd experienced with competing, with gymnastics. So what I wanted to have was like an elite group of girls training together and competing as a team. And, I had girls that came in and competed, trained together and competed against each other as a team. But also had general population come in. And, it's really interesting. My business has grown as I have grown. So what started out as like, yeah, I'm just an athlete, is now like, oh, actually, I'm this whole human being with this spiritual side, this emotional side, and this physical side, and everything in between. And that's kind of what I started to teach the girls. It was very much mindset work. It was, yes, be empowering people to be strong, adopting, looking at nutrition as fuel, and teaching girls, how to track their macros and not relying on meal plans. And hey, let's look at self-love. And now it's, transition from being in a gym to just purely online. I've got about 380 girls that split between myself. I've got 5 coaches, 5 amazing coaches that I get to work with and learn from as well. I've got a huge team. I've got a neuroscientist. I've got a meditation coach. I've got I work with one of my best friends, Katarina, who is just incredible at what she does, and just being able to, I call her like the glue to the business. She just is incredible at putting things together and being organized. And then I've got, my ex-partner, who I am still in business with, and he's, he conducts a lot of the behind the scenes work. And so it went from just me to, me and my partner, to then me, myself, Kat, and Nick. And now I've got this big team of coaches and all these. I've got a communication specialist. It's just boomed into this crazy, amazing business. And it's not about me anymore. It's about the girls. It's about the team. It's about their transformation. My mission is to create a world of resourceful women powerfully supporting one another, because that's what I am. I'm a resourceful woman powerfully supporting the women in my life and the men. And so, eventually my doves need to fly away. Coaching is taking someone from A to B and them going, you know what? I got everything I needed out of this program. I've got the tools and the skills to go and do this on my own. In fact, a lot of women come to me, and like we mentioned in the beginning, it's like, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a teacher, I'm all these things, but I don't actually know who I am. And the Sports Water Project is literally the incubator of someone's self-development, of someone's learning to love themselves and to develop a new relationship with themselves that they didn't have a space to do so somewhere else. So I call it my little incubator, and we have girls that stay with us, anywhere between 6 months to 3-4 years. It's this ongoing thing, because there's so many layers to us. As we evolve, we peel one more thing away and we go, oh my God, this thing's exposed. And I'm so grateful. Like, I've worked with thousands of women now over the course, since 2013. And where SMP is now, as I said, it's a reflection of who I am. We've got all of the different facets of a human being. We're about the spiritual, the mental, the physical. Because at the end of the day, you can change the way you look, but that's not a transformation. A transformation is someone their physical and their mental moving and their spiritual moving together. Because I've coached girls and they've won shows and they've looked in the mirror and gone, I'm still not good enough. Well, I didn't transform them. They just changed the way they looked. They didn't change anything about themselves. And I was like, I'm not making someone happier. My mission, and I can't make someone happy. I can facilitate things. I can give people tools. But I recognize, I was like, what is my role in this world? And how, I ask myself all the time, like, what is my role in this world? Actually, what am I here to do? What is my purpose? And how can I show up so that I can leave a mark in this world? How do I help change people's lives? I can't change anyone, but how can I facilitate someone's growth in whatever they need? And that's what the Sports Water Project really, really moved into. And it's, oh man, I'm so proud of my entire team. It feels so nice to be able to have a team that I learn from, I grow with, and I trust more than anything. I trust. So
I think from my standpoint, I mean, hearing that kind of, what your business is about now, it's obviously, even more than I'd realized from the outset. It's the first thing, honestly, like, well done, to have seen kind of just on a personal level, to see where you've come from, back in the days to now and actually what you're doing. I think that's important too. Like what I love about what you just said is, the physical body really is just it's the end product of the teachings that you're going through, really.
Yeah.
And obviously if people are, treating themselves right mentally and physically, they're going to be a lot happier ongoing, which kind of links into one of the things when it comes to nutrition. We've noticed that you do this, the gut performance supplementation and stuff these days. So obviously a lot of people just look at nutrition from calories in, calories out. And don't get me wrong, if you talk about hierarchy of importance for, general health, well-being, and body composition results, you kind of need to be optimizing your calories to get any kind of outcome. That goes without saying. But obviously, you look at it a bit more on a deeper level than that. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've got a product called Gut Performance, and it's funny, I learned about the importance of gut health when my mum, who's a clinical nurse, she was doing a lot of the clinical trials with this surprising new product, which was sugarcane stem. So they discovered that with the removal of the sugar, it became this really nutrient-dense superfood, and it was having a really, really, really positive effect on blood sugar levels. Then she was working with a food scientist at Macquarie University, and they were looking to help develop a gut product. So she was doing the work with this guy called Mal, and they said to me, if there was something that an athlete needed, what would it be? And I was like, well, at the end of the day, if your gut is healthy, we know that you're absorbing all your nutrients. We know that you're going to perform better. We know that you're going to be building muscle. Your body's going to be seeing those calories. And so I was like, to be honest, it's all about recovery for me. If I know my gut's healthy, I know that I'm absorbing all my food, I know that I'm going to recover, I know that I can train harder. And so I got involved with the trials and the testing of gut performance, and that's essentially how we came up with it. We wanted it to be a natural food, so it's actually not a supplement, it's pure food. We've got sugarcane pulp, we've got the red sorghum, which is it's a non-GMO gluten-free grain, and it's really high in starches a type of starch, which is really good for your gut. And then we've also got the beetroot as well. So what we came to see is like those three ingredients together, nothing kind of overlapped each other, but they worked really well together. And so my mum started doing all the trialing and testing, and we just saw incredible results from women with a lot of inflammation. So things with IBS, both IBS C and D, PCOS, endometriosis, and people with diabetes because of the blood sugar levels.
Yep.
So it was at that time in particular, it was 2013, I was really hesitant to be a part of that, because I was like, I was just kind of up and coming then. I'm thinking, if I put my name on something that I'm unsure of, it's not going to look really good. But I started doing the testing. I started taking the supplement, and I have that every single day without fail. It's something that I truly believe in. The testimonials that we got coming back, we never asked anyone for testimonials. They just sent them to us. And it's just really, it's a product that I truly believe in. We've got so many, like I said, clinical trials showing the effects of what it has in terms of minimizing the inflammation that has been happening in people's guts, particularly with people with IBS and PCOS. But even the interesting thing was people with diabetes. So they found that when they took it with food, it actually lowered their blood sugar levels.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I actually used Gut Performance for my very first prep that I did. It wasn't with the WBFF. I actually had to cut that prep short because I was suffering from IBS and I was not able to normally. And I actually used Gut Performance when you first released it. And I was able to ship it. I bought 3 of them because I was like, the shipping here was really, I was just like, it is what it is. I'm going to try it. And honestly, it did save me from my IBS issues. And I still use it to this day. It's my secret weapon. Even if I
there you go.
There you go.
Yeah. I need it in my routine. It helps me start my day. And,
Yeah.
you know, watching you do that and then me actually trying it and being like, oh my gosh, it works for me. I highly recommend it for anyone to incorporate to their routine. Like, I'm a big fan of that.
There you go, another testimonial.
There you go.
Let's go.
I
Without
honestly,
even asking
I
for
don't
it.
have, I don't have a day without it. I like,
Yeah.
actually, there was 2018, I was over in Mexico and I'd run out of it and I had 10 days without it. And I actually, I was just getting so inflamed. I had to drop all my training back. I was like not in a good way I was just super bloated, stopped going to the toilet. Like it was really busy. And I've never had that experience. Then I had to fly back home to Sydney and I said to my sister, meet me at the airport with gut performance. And she did. And I had that. And then like, I was just like, couldn't stop going to the bathroom. And I dropped like 2 kilos so quickly.
Instantly.
And I was like, all right, I just had so much inflammation from all the training stress and the dieting that it just helped me so much. So I often use it as well when I'm dieting. I have it in the morning and at night because it just prolongs that meal.
Yeah.
And all the fiber just fuels me up a little bit. So yeah, it's something that I'm really, really proud of. And we've just released a collagen one as well. And it tastes amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
To start to wrap this podcast up, I feel like we could talk endlessly. What is one thing we're going to talk and end the podcast with talking about, you know, this online community. It's obvious that, you know, with the Sports Model Project and just you as a person have developed such an amazing and inspiring online community. And like we said earlier, a lot of our audience are coaches. You know, I myself am a coach. What would be something that you could give as advice for fostering a deeper connection with your clients and creating that connection with people in that community, even in a digital space? You know, there are lots of fish in the sea and we can all be fishermen in the sea. And I think that, you know, I myself as a coach have tried to really embody the stuff that you do as a coach, because I think that it is very beneficial, especially for the women that we are working with. And I think I'll give the mic over to you to talk a little bit more about what other coaches can do to really embody what you're doing as well.
Well, I mean, community is so important. Like biologically, we're meant to be a part of a tribe.
Yeah.
Our biological needs are to be a part of something. And so, little sidetrack, what has been hard for people in COVID is like you've been told to isolate. That doesn't feel good.
Yep.
So community, ladies and gentlemen, is more important than ever right now. And how we foster a good community, love, like connection,
Love,
talking, videos, you know, us seeing each other here. We get to see mannerisms, we get to see facial expressions, hear tone, see hands. And so we communicate not just by voice, but by seeing and facial expression. And so if you're trying to create a community, be active, check in with people, do regular videos. I do a lot of group calls with my clients. So it gets, you know, 50 girls at a time on one screen. And, you know, I'll talk about topics, or it's a Q&A. It's very interactive. I get the girls to interact, encourage your clients to connect with other like-minded people, other people in their forums. You know, put games in there, questionnaires in there, anything that's going to interact people to communicate and also connect. And also something that I found really useful is share your wins. I think people can sometimes feel like, oh, they're maybe their family doesn't understand, and often they don't. You know, we're dealing with traditions, we're dealing with you know, male and female, we're dealing with all these different socioeconomic environments, and things don't always match up. And so making sure the environment that you're nesting is supportive for the people that you're working with. And like I said, being really interactive, regular calls or little videos, doesn't have to be that long. Communication, I think, is the biggest thing. So
I think a lot of the time coaches forget, like, obviously people are going to come to you to get a result, right? But they stay for the experience.
Yeah.
You know, so it's one thing to open the door and have them walk through it, but it's another to keep them in your home for a period of time. So I think, you know, like one message I took away from that is, you know, again, reiterating the importance of customer service, showing your face and actually, you know, being there. Because, you know, a lot of those people that come to you for that initial change, as you mentioned, they stay for 3 to 4 years. They're not staying there for 3 to 4 years just because of the results.
Yeah. And you know what?
They're staying there because they feel like they're part of something.
Dane, something that I absolutely feel so grateful for with the Sports Water Project is there are girls that I used to train in-house together in like 2014. They're all now still best friends. In fact, something
Yeah.
that I get all the time is I'm so grateful for SMP because I met this person. Because now I've got my best friends, and I had somewhere to feel. I had somewhere to feel a part, like something to be a part of, because their other friends didn't understand, and it's really difficult when you're trying to change your life, but your friends or your partner doesn't want to change, or it's scary for you.
Yep.
You know, you hear that saying, "Don't ever change." Well, you have to. You have to evolve. No, maybe not. Maybe the change isn't the word, but evolve. Yeah, we need to evolve. And we hear that all the time. People don't want others to change because why? We find connection through trauma or through different ways of bonding. And if someone's not ready to change, whether there is, it's really scary for the other person. So community is so important for change. It creates an environment where people feel safe enough to explore, to share, to fail forward, to be a part of, to create a new network of friends. Like you said, customer service is a big thing, but I think it all comes down to love and nurture and love what you do. I think, this is I'm on a
Yep.
holiday. This is my last week of holidays. Last week I had 1 week off. This is my second week off. I haven't had a week off from work in like 7 years, like properly, unless I've gone to Burning Man, and I get back and I'm exhausted. But I realized I always said, no, I don't need time off. No, I don't need it because I love my job. But everyone needs time away. But we also have to work, rest, play, work, rest, play, work, rest, play. Because we are humans. We are playful, but we are focused and disciplined. And it's knowing when to push, knowing when to pull back.
Agreed. Final question for you.
Mm-hmm.
For all of you kinds of followers and our followers as well that are tuning in right now, what's the next 12 months looking like in store for you? Got any big projects coming up? I mean, you mentioned that you're going to look at competing next year, sports model project. Like, what's going on in your world?
Yeah, so I mean, it's always to continue to evolve and grow in the Sports Model Project. Take on more coaches as well. I'd like to be able to work with more coaches, not only for me to learn from, but also to be able to work with more women. We have got a mindset. I work with a neuroscientist, and she's created a curriculum based off the SMP principles that we have in SMP, because we're all about, essentially practice-based living. I've spoken about radical self-leadership, radical self-acceptance, radical responsibility, and these are these principles that we teach the girls to live by. And so she's created this this course based off neuroscience to teach the girls to be able to learn about their nervous system, but also apply it to the principles in SMP. So we're rolling that out this year. It's been our first ever new project, which is really cool. I want to start my own podcast, but I don't want it to be fitness related. I want it to be about all the other things that I like to talk about, which is like sex, relationships, mindset, neuroscience, behavior, just the whole human experience. And yeah, of course, a little bit of, I love training and nutrition, but like there's so much of that out there. I want to talk about the other stuff. So that's something that I'm looking
to give you some motivation. I'm about to launch one myself.
Around the same thing?
Family, fitness. Yeah,
Okay.
well, family, fitness, and finance. And fitness is encompassing mental and physical. Because I think, when you've been doing it as long as you and I have, Hattie, 15, 20 years, I think everything that we've learned from within the fitness industry, the food, the lifestyle, the training, they're kind of core pillars for life, right? So I think if you could take those core pillars that give you a lot of strength and resilience, and then really, start to branch that out across other topics, it will really serve you well, but also the people that you're connecting with to really impact what they're doing as well.
Yeah, I feel like I look like such a robot on social media, and because I don't want to. I feel like, oh, that's such a space for that, and I'm like, well, there's other things that I like to talk about, and like I've really started to kind of talk more about, like I said, intimacy and how important that is, and I'm like, well, I'd actually like to help more women, with that, because it goes in hand with getting to know your body and getting to know yourself, and also how important that is for relationships. There's so many relationship breakdowns because people are not connected to themselves, and we want to rely on someone else to feel that. No, it's not that at all. We feel those holes ourselves. So the podcast, like I said, growing SMP. I would like to, I've spoken about, I didn't finish school, and a part of me would really like to finish school and go to uni. So that's why I'd like to be working with more coaches so that I can pull back a little bit and do that thing, because at the moment I just don't have time. And then, of course, getting ready for whatever shows I choose to do next year, being the world champion for 2022. And then, of course, working with, lots of females from all over the world, which is what I love doing.
That's super exciting, and I'm really excited to see all of that come to life. I feel like every single year you come out to be a better, newer, greater version of you, and I think that's very inspiring for anybody who's following you or works with you or even just knows about you. I think you really do set the standard and are a role model for a lot of women, including myself. And I think we do this question with every one of our guests. What are 3 things you would like to share with our listeners or anybody in the fitness industry? What are 3 gems that you can give us to end off this podcast?
Shivers. Slower is faster is the first thing I'll say. Slower is faster. What I mean by that is take time on yourself. Be your own race. Slower allows us to absorb, and it allows us to be process driven. And I guess that's the next thing, be process driven. Inspiration without action is just entertainment. So what are you going to do with that inspiration? When you do feel inspired, what action can you take that's going to allow you to create a process that's going to allow you to measure how you're actually going? And the last one would be, I guess it kind of ties into all of them. It's like you're on your own journey.
Yeah.
Be inspired by others and what's possible. Don't use it to beat you down. Like Dane and I, I've been doing this for 15 years. You've been doing this for 15 years. Like what you see now is an accumulation of a lifetime of work, physically and mentally and spiritually. And one thing I always say to my girls, the time you focus on other people is time you lose focusing on yourself. And time is the most valuable commodity that we have. People worry about where they spend their money. Be worried about where you spend your time, right? Time is expensive, but it is also so valuable. So when you can really look at it like that, like I said, be inspired by what's possible, but use your energy and focus to go, what can I do? What can I control? What can I measure? How do I be better?
Yeah. Well, Hattie, thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. You are a powerhouse of a woman, and I'm really excited that you are our first female guest and just setting the standard for all the wonderful guests we're going to have for the rest of the season. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I'm going to fangirl 1 second and tell you how much I freaking love you, and that wraps up the podcast.
Thanks, guys.